7 of guys sitting there. 2 days later, there's 6. 3 days later, there's 5. A week later, there's 2.
Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Dankin. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming the King of Pot. With me, as always, is the King of Pot, my cousin Bruce Perlowin. Bruce, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. I can't wait to get to today's interesting stories.
Yes, me too. But before we do, if you're watching us for the first time or the 100th time, thank you for that. But please hit the subscribe button so YouTube knows that you really like us. It also helps us here at Becoming the King of Pot. And if you're looking for any Becoming the King of Pot merchandise, make sure you check out the website at becomingtkop.com. So, Bruce, last time we left off, your buddy Steve is leaving Texarkana and gets to Pleasanton, where you feel it's a paradise because it's filled with women, right? So let's take us through like your first entry into Pleasanton and what that was like, sort of like, oh my God, what is going on here? I want to hear that.
Okay, so I get to Pleasanton and I see 2/3 women. There's 600 people there approximately, a little bit more sometimes. Units 1 and 2 were women. Units 3 were the men. 200 men, 400 women. I'm in heaven. All right.
Yeah.
Gorgeous, gorgeous women.
And these are all obviously criminals, right? And what are they in for?
Oh, yeah. I used to say my best friends are spies, assassins, terrorists, hijackers, jewel thieves, bank robbers, smugglers, and that's just the females. All right. So Let's review that. Because the characters, and we'll get into stories about each one of these places. Spies, Russian spies, Svetlana Ogorodnikov. The first time an FBI agent was ever convicted of espionage was Richard Miller, and she was a Russian spy in that case. That was the largest espionage case of the 80s. She was there, who eventually became my walkie, which means you're walking with them. I'll get into what a walkie means. My girlfriend and my wife. Okay, the spies.
Yeah,
terrorists.
I think that's quite fascinating that you end up in a co-ed prison and then you marry a Russian spy. Oh yeah, that's like a normal everyday life.
Well, you see, I had a crush on Ida, the Puerto Rican terrorist, but she went with Mikey, the other smuggler, and so I ended up with the Russian spy. Okay.
Got it. So by default, I guess, right?
Right.
All right. So that she's a spy. Who else is there?
Okay, so spies, assassins. Spies, assassins. Okay, Sarah Jane Moore. She was the lady that shot at President Ford. I'll tell you a quick story about Sarah. I go, Sarah, why did you miss? What happened? Why did you miss? The only thing she did wrong, as far as she's concerned, was she missed. All right. And she goes, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. The FBI came and confiscated all my guns the night before or 2 nights before, and I had to go out and get a Saturday night special or Friday night special, whatever they call them. And I shot at him. I was so stunned that I missed because I'm a marksman that I couldn't get off a second shot. And when they took the gun to the FBI lab, and they proved that the sights were off. So it wasn't my fault the sights were off. That was wrong. Not like I shouldn't have killed the president of the United States.
Right. That damn gun. Why? Wait. So the FBI confiscates her guns and they know that she's a threat to the president?
So I never got into that. Why? I mean, I believe she was working as an FBI informant, found out that Ford was, this is what she told me, that Ford was assassinating people all over the world and sanctioning that. So that's why she wanted to shoot him, because she didn't believe in that.
Right. Okay.
So she did get out of
spies, assassins. Who else you got?
Spies, assassins, terrorists. Now, the terrorists were the Puerto Rican terrorists. There was 4 of them. Ida, Delcia, Lucy, and Carmen. Now, they consider themselves freedom fighters, as do a lot of people. But the United States government labeled them terrorists. Okay, spies, assassins, terrorists. All right. They were all wonderful people, by the way.
Yeah. Most of them are. Yeah.
Yeah, most of your terrorists. Well, no, today it's not very unpopular, but back then they were freedom fighting to free Puerto Rico from U.S. domination. Okay, spy assassins, terrorists, hijackers. Julie Busick. Julie Busick and her husband hijacked a plane to bring awareness to the Croatian plight back in those days. That was the 80s. And today, Julie Busick is, last I heard, the assistant to the vice president of Croatia. After she got out of jail.
Wow.
Judy was a beautiful, beautiful woman. We all loved to run the track behind her, and you can imagine why the guys wanted to run behind Julie Busick. Okay, spies, assassins, hijackers, jewel thieves. Oh my God, Candace. Candace was a lean and mean cat burglar, and that was
So
one
she
of
stole
my.
cats? She stole cats?
She was a second-story cat burglar, typical cat burglar, solid muscle, nice and thin. One of the cruelest events happened in prison in Pleasanton. I joke about this, but we would go. Nobody would believe this. We used to have dances in the covered rec, and we wore our own clothes. And there's a lot of wealthy women in there with $1,000 formal gowns, which they would wear to the dance. And the captain had a oldie goldies collection, so he'd be playing the oldie goldies. I'm looking down at the covered rec. Everybody's slow dancing in their regular clothes, beautifully decked out. And I go, nobody would ever believe this. And we're going to have a lot of the people on that were in Pleasanton with us, to tell the story.
Good. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Okay, so you're in prison with all of these federal lawbreakers, right? That we've just described. And what's going through your mind as you walk through a prison for the first time and you see 400 women available?
Oh, well, you're drooling.
Right, because you've been in Texarkana for how long?
About a year.
Yeah, about a year. So it's been a year since we've even seen a woman, really, unless there was a
then
guard.
a year in county jails, about 2 years.
So,
yeah.
Right.
So again, a year in county jails, about 9 to 12 months in Texarkana. The minute I found there was a co-ed prison, I'm there. And now I'm walking around and now Joe Chagar was my roommate. Joe was an amazing human being. Jimmy Chagar, his brother, was one of the biggest marijuana smugglers early on out of Las Vegas. In fact, Woody Harrelson is, Joe Chagar hired Woody Harrelson's father to kill Judge Woods, which he did.
Oh, wow.
Okay, lots of sub stories here. Right?
Yeah.
And then
I guess when you're in prison, like that, you meet other famous criminals, right? Because it's all federal, right? So that's interesting, and I can't wait to meet some of them too.
Oh, it's going to take a while to get just through who was there, and then we'll get them on.
Right.
Sarah, when Sarah got out of prison after Ford died, you're not allowed to get it. If you've tried to kill a president, the protocol is, or the rule is, you stay in prison until they pass away. All right, so Ford passed away, she got out, and then she met a guy in New York Central Park and was traveling around the world and they're living happily ever after.
Nice.
A lot of these stories were happily ever after stories, after prison. All right, so now the most cruelest, horriblest thing happened at Pleasanton. We would go to the movies Friday night and Saturday night, 2 nights, and you'd take your date to the movie. You'd sit there and you'd hold hands, and try and do other things if the guards weren't looking. And I'm sitting with Candace, this gorgeous, hot cat burglar, and I say, would you like to go to the movies with me on Friday night? And she says, no. I go, what? What do you mean, no? I'm the king of pot. I'm handsome. I'm in great shape. And no. I mean, that is cruel and unusual punishment, guys. All right. Little did I know that when she go back into her unit, Lana was terrorizing anyone that came near me, because she's a very aggressive, lieutenant colonel in the GRU, right? People say KGB, but it was really GRU, military intelligence for Russia. I liked aggressive, assertive women. All right. So Candace was the cat burger. All right. So spies, assassins, terrorists, jewel thieves, bank robbers. Trina and Danielle, really beautiful, sweet, gorgeous, bank robbers from Oregon or somewhere up in Washington. They were there. And they went to school with me. We had colleges. Bank robbers, jewel thieves. Let's see. Spies, assassins, terrorists, hijackers, jewel thieves, bank robbers, smugglers. Carol. Carol was actually was as big a smuggler as me on that back in Key West and in Florida. So we called her Queenie because she was a queen pin. And
Right.
she had a master's degree in marine biology. She was Joe Chagra. Okay, Jimmy Chagra's little brother was Joe Chagra. He was a lawyer in that case. And Joe Chagra got convicted of the murder for Judge Woods and he really had nothing to do with it, but they had him on cocaine because he was snorting too much cocaine. So he was going to either face 2 10-year sentences for cocaine or plead guilty to murdering the judge and get 1 10-year sentence. So he took that. And then Liz Chagra, which was Jimmy's wife, she was in prison with us as well. And all she did was deliver $250,000 from Jimmy to Woody Harrelson's father. I forgot his name. And so she got convicted on that. Weird stuff. She got convicted for conspiracy to commit second-degree murder. That's an impossible charge. If you conspire to murder, it's first-degree murder.
I see.
It's the only conviction of its kind in the history of the United States. They just wanted to get him in, they kill a judge, the government's not real happy with you, so they'll do anything to put you in prison. And ultimately, she died in prison of cancer. They wouldn't let her out. Not in in Lexington, which was the last co-ed prisons in America and the medical facility for women. Okay, so then we had Manan Sheila. I don't know if any of you remember Rajneeshpuram up in Oregon. It was Rajneesh was the big guru that had 30 Rolls Royces, and they built Rajneeshpuram, the city up there, and then they tried and poisoned the whole town.
Yeah.
All right. They were on voting day. They went around and put in all the ketchup and mayonnaise and all the restaurants. They put salmonella, so everybody would get salmonella poisoning and wouldn't be able to go to vote on voting day. So,
oh my God.
So Manan Sheila was there for that, and Pooji and I think Kathleen or Kathy, her 2 secretaries, were there. Griselda Blanco. Now that lady I did not like. She was the Black Widow and the head of the Cocaine Cowboys and murdered 200 people. She was the one that invented the. You may have seen that, guys pull up on and that was one of the reasons I moved out of Florida in the beginning, because of that kind of violence, in a motorcycle with a guy with a machine gun on the back, and that's how they did their hits. Interesting enough, after she got out and was deported to Colombia, she got whacked exactly the same way, But, you kill 200 people, their kids and their uncles and their nephews and family are going to come after you, which is what happened.
Right, sure.
So there's a lot more different personalities. The men was amazing people. There was Mike Randall. He was one of the founders of the Brotherhood of Eternal Love. Our whole generation is deeply grateful for them for putting 120 million hits of Orange Sunshine into the marketplace. And they were big.
And that's LSD, the Orange Sunshine?
Yeah, Orange Sunshine, LSD. Which was great for the 60s. It changed your perspective. It changed an entire generation. And the reverberations of those changes are seen in society today. I won't go into all of them, but if you take a look around, you'll see a lot of changes, positive changes that happen because of people's minds being affected by LSD. Today, jump forward, after the craze of the war on drugs is wearing off, there's major research.
Is it wearing off?
Well,
we're blowing ships out of the water that we don't even know have drugs on them.
Yeah, but what I mean for marijuana, there's only 10 states that have not legalized medical marijuana and recreation, and they're doing research on psilocybin and every major university in America on psilocybin, and a lot with LSD for depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, suicide, sleep disorders. Just it's a great alternative to pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so who else was there? There was.
Well, let's meet these people along the way. What I want to hear from you, is, here you go from a Texarkana prison to this wonderful co-ed prison where all of these interesting and colorful people, right? So how do you conduct yourself? I mean, how do you go meet people? How do you be, do they already know who you are, and do you already know who they are? And does it become well, I've done this, and they're like, well, yeah, I'm in here for this. Like, how does that
Well,
work, and how do you integrate with this new crowd?
okay. Let me get three last people. Rosa, who was a good.
Or just say the three last people that you want to
Okay,
talk about.
Rosa, the Colombian, she was from El Salvador, cocaine smuggler. Steve Kalish, who was with me in Texarkana, he just wrote this book, The Gentleman Smuggler. I'm pitching his book. Everyone should buy it. It's a fascinating read. I can't put it down. Mikey, the marijuana smuggler that Ida ended up with, although she was with Steve before while he first got there. Okay, so how do you get in there? Understand you're in a very closed environment. And it was fascinating for me. You have every age group, every kind of nationality, black, white, Latino, people from Asia, people from India, people from everywhere in the world, all
Yeah.
different age groups, and it's like a microcosm of the world, and you see everyone every single day. So if Pepe, he was another guy in there, if he's fighting with Carol, his girlfriend, you see that they're fighting because they're not standing next to each other in the chow line. And so you see human nature up close every single day. So how do you integrate it? It's just like, well, how can I describe it? It's just like going to college campus, shrunk down. So you see Idea every day. I see Steve Kelly every day. My roommate, Joe Chog, I see him every day. We go out and we go to school. We go to work at the rec pile, and you get to know everybody. And then,
Yeah.
who's that guy? Who's that guy? And everybody ends up knowing who everybody is, and what their charges are, and whether they were a snitch or not a snitch. And
Right. Whether they're guilty or they're not guilty. I think
yeah,
prison's filled with not guilty people,
yeah, I
isn't it?
was one of the few people that was guilty. Yeah,
Right, you're
I
like, "I did it. I did it."
exactly. Hey, I did it. I'm guilty. I'm going to do my time. I'm going to get a college degrees. I'm going to read all these books. I'm going to get in great physical shape. Um,
Yeah, so
and
let's talk about that. So you're integrating in, you're meeting people on the yard, you're having chow, you're kinda integrating in, and then you probably form a little clique with some of these folks, right?
yeah, everyone has their clique. My clique was me, Joe Chaga, my roommate, Carol the Queen Pin, Steve Kalish, Mikey, Ide, Delcia, because I taught yoga. So I had different cliques. I had the guys I worked out. Well, I worked out pretty much for myself. Um,
Right. Okay,
and
so let's talk about your entry into yoga and when you started doing yoga, when you got there, and how is it received?
It was received very well. I had Kundalini Yoga manuals, and so I started teaching Kundalini Yoga classes to whoever wanted to come. And it was, again, Mikey, Ide, and Lucy were there all the time. I don't remember if Steve was participating in the yoga. Um, and I had 5 to 10 people doing yoga in the yard every day, and I would just go through the book and go through the different positions and movements and breaths. Uh, it was received very well. People like to do yoga. People wanted to get healthy. Once they're there, everybody, n- everybody, 50% of the people were pretty much health fanatics, whether it's
Yeah.
walking, running, doing on the weight pile, playing tennis, with uh, basketball. You
Sounds like
had
a country club.
it was bocce ball. I love bocce ball. I learned bocce ball there.
Right.
And in Texarkana, they had a bocce ball court. I'm not sure about Pleasanton. It was a country club. You literally you wore your own clothes. We had a key to our own door. We could lock the door, and there's just a little slit. So if you wanted to use the toilet in your bath, it was a bunk bed, a sink, a toilet, and a smaller area for, just to hang out in. And, you could put a patch, a thing over the little window when you're using the restroom, so you have privacy. Uh, it was almost being in heaven for me.
So so that's a whole different perspective from anyone I've ever talked to who's been to jail or prison. That's just a little slice of heaven, right? So now let's talk about that for a minute because it's a very interesting perspective, right? So you were heavily into yoga, you were heavily into, all of these different, mind altering, not only drugs but experiences, right? And your plan, right, was to go away, right, for 10 years and study with the Maharishi, right? And now you find yourself, oh well, this must be my Maharishi experience. Is that what you're thinking?
Sort of, yes. I always planned, back in the 60s when I was first got into yoga, I figured I want to go away to a Himalaya cave for 10 years. And I told all my friends that. I'm going to go disappear for 10 years and again to the Himalaya cave and meditate and do yoga and reach enlightenment. This was the modern version of that. I went away for 10 years, 9 years.
Right.
And
Right.
I had all the things I wanted to have. I got to read as many books. I had professors would come in from UC Berkeley and Cal State and another university and actually come into the prison and teach. So you had very high quality professors coming in. I got a 4-year college degree, made straight A's, made the national dean's list, the president's list. Um, and
So what's that like? What's that like getting your degree, in prison? Was it regular classrooms? Was there a curriculum? I mean, how did all that work?
Well, you go at night. Okay, so and also I taught GED class during the day sometimes to the inmates. I taught algebra. I so at night
Don't
we'd
forget
all
we're still back at day 1, right? No, no, we're into, like,
okay.
year 7, right? So
Okay,
so
so day 1 is what's available here? What kind of courses do they have? How much can I work out? How much can I read? What is you get into what we call a routine. So the routine is easy because it's established by the lights on at the same time every day. You have count every day at the same time. You have chow hall every day at the same time for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you get into this routine. Now, keep in
right,
mind, this is mostly my entire 30s. What you're not doing compared to outside is you're not doing drugs. You're not getting drunk. You're not doing meth. You're not doing drugs. And if you do, if you make some hooch and get drunk, it's very, very mild. You miss the party years. While all your friends are out there partying and killing themselves, not knowing it, long-term substance abuse, um, you're being healthy.
yeah,
So um, so day 1, you figure out, okay, what's the schedule? When can I go out into the big yard? And they had a running track. How much can I run each? I was 3 or 4 miles 3 times a week. When do I
mhm,
work out? Well, I grew up being a undefeated weightlifting champion, the state of Florida for 4 years. First in tri-state and AAU competition, third in the teenage nationals when I was 18, and I wanted to break all my records. So I was working out hard. I used the Bulgarian workout routine. That's maximum weights 3 times a day. All right, and the theory there, the Bulgarian won all the weightlifting contests in the Olympics way back when because they used this specific routine. Your estrogen, what not estrogen, your testosterone levels when you're working out boost for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, it's diminishing returns. So you do maximum weights, minimum repetitions, as much as you can do, and you do it for 45 minutes. You work out 3 times a day. Right. So that was my workout routine, and you get really,
right,
really strong doing that.
yeah.
So I had to figure that out. Do I want to play tennis? Yeah, I played tennis with Pepe a lot. Um, what is my routine? That's the main thing. Where am I going to work? When you get
And
there,
what are the options? What are the options? Where could you work?
everybody has to do 90 days in the kitchen. And I didn't want to work in the kitchen. Most people did not. Some people liked it. So I did my 90 days. I don't remember what I was doing in the kitchen after 90 days. Then I started working what was basically for the rec department, cleaning up the weight pile, which was for me great because people would work out. The next morning, I would go out to the weight pile all by myself. I was the one out there, and I lift. I actually would add it all up. Okay, I lift 4,000 pounds and picked them up, put them back on the rack.
Right,
You know,
right.
and then I would work out by myself during that time. So that was a great job. Later, I migrated over to running the movie projector at the movie theater because that's where me and Svetlana could have our secret love spot. And I
Right.
think I talked
Right.
about that in episode 28 and 29 when we talked to Judy. Judy was
Yeah.
in there. She was a big smuggler.
Yeah.
There's a book on her. There's books on a lot of these guys are in books or
Yeah.
documentaries.
Right. Okay. So you're in your routine. You're waking up every day. You kind of got the lay of the land. Right. And now your friendships start to form, right, with all of these folks because you sort of, as humans, right, we go with like-minded people, right? So you look for your group of people and you just sort of become this group of friends.
Sort of. I did a lot of sociology and psychology as my courses. And one of the papers I did was the dyad. A dyad is a couple. All right, a triad is three people. So as opposed to a group, I'll give you a couple examples of the group. Um, a group of they were from Hawaii. Hawaiians come in, and there was a place in the prison where you could sit in a circle. There was a circle, and it was like it was cement, and you step down, and then you step down again. So you would sit on either the top level or the second level.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's 7 Hawaiians, and they all hung out together, and they were sort of a gang, like the Aryan Brotherhood would hang out the Aryan Brotherhood in a all-male prison. So there's 7 of guys sitting there. 2 days later, there's 6. 3 days later, there's 5. A week later, there's 2.
Are they dying or escaping?
They're teaming up with their girlfriends.
Ah.
Okay, so here's how that worked. The social climate or the social rules of engagement. You walk with a woman. Who wants to walk around and talk to a guy? You want to walk around, talk with a woman, right, that you're attracted to. So you'd walk around, talk to them, and you'd talk about whatever, life, your case, whatever you talk about, what men and women talk about. But if you held hands, then you're called a walkie, and you're a couple. You're officially a couple when you're holding hands.
That's the symbol, right?
That's it, and everyone else backs away. Don't mess, don't go flirting with Carol, she's with Joe. Don't go flirting with, Julie, she's with her husband. Don't go flirting with this one, they're with, they're teamed up. If you're not holding hands, you're open,
Open season.
right? You're single.
Right.
And then there's some stories about what happens in the visiting room, but we'll get into that maybe in a different episode. When your walkie is visiting her boyfriend or husband and you're into visiting your husband, you can imagine, you're madly in love in prison, but you're still married outside.
Right.
It's interesting, weird dynamics, but very fun dynamics, exciting dynamics.
Yeah, they say that sex in prison doesn't really count. Is that true?
No, it counts.
It counts. Okay.
Here's one of the things I noticed because I studied people. I study human behavior. I mean, I'm taking sociology class. I'm studying I got this microcosm of the world, that I can watch and see how people react. Let's say Linda and Tom are holding hands, and they've been together for 2 years. Linda's going to go out of prison. She's getting released, so Tom's there alone. Here's the first thing you notice. All the women, about 2 weeks before, maybe a month before, women who never said a word to Tom would come up to him and say, "Hi, Tom, how you doing?" That's it, just a greeting. And they're, trying to warm up to him. Then his girlfriend leaves, and she's going to wait for him. They're madly in love. She's single on the outside. And Tom's going to wait. He's not going to get another girlfriend in prison. Me and Svetlana could say, okay, in 3 days, he'll be walking with someone else, or in 3 weeks, he'll be walking with someone else. And we could literally pin it to with 1 or 2 days. There you go.
Right.
He's got a new girlfriend, and there she is. She's out, dating and forgot all about Tom. So it's pretty intense being together like that. And it's pretty interesting how long it does or doesn't last. I waited for Svetlana 3.5 years. And one of the reasons, besides being in love with her, and I honor my commitments.
Well, she was a Russian spy and can have you assassinated. You know,
Exactly. No, I
or
wasn't worried about,
poisoned, right?
but because everybody else didn't. No
Right.
one else did that I know. So I said, and I like to do the opposite. If a crowd goes that way, I'm going that way. If everyone in society is doing this, I'm doing that. It's just part of my rebellious, you know, outlaw nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
All
the
right.
women were
So,
great. Because I like assertive women. They were all assertive. 90% of them. There was very few
yeah, they're all
passive.
criminals. I guess there's not very many passive criminals, right?
No, no.
You know, there's definitely an A personality type of a person who wants to climb on a second story and break into somebody's house and steal shit, right? Or rob a bank or, even freedom fighters and, back then what they were called, right? You gotta be able to carry your weight, right?
Yeah, yeah. You got to be tough to do those kind of things. The people who aren't, alpha females, they're not in prison.
Right. Right. And did you have any females in your organization?
Yeah, we had Mary Ann, and she was yeah, and in episode 5 with Craig, it was Craig's
Yeah.
girlfriend, and we talked about her going down to Cat
Yeah.
Island with him. But she could be in a row of people huffing bales, pump, just as good and as efficient as the toughest, strongest guy. So there's
Yeah.
Mary Ann. Um, there's not that many, no. I'm sure there was a couple. Oh, Roseanne, but Roseanne was retired when she was my girlfriend right
Yeah.
before prison. But she knew
So
that.
smuggling sounds like a guy's job.
Yeah, yeah. There
Right.
there is very few women, and we'll have any women that want to come on will come on. Um, and I've identified. Well, we had Judy, right? Judy was,
Yeah.
and Connie, her sister, and Nancy, her other sister. They were all smugglers. The whole family went to prison pretty much. Um, And, uh, and there's Jenny that worked with the Don Steinberg organization. She's still around. Carol passed away, Carol the Queen Pin, we think. I
And
mean, she just
Connie is, um Connie's kind of got a famous daughter, doesn't she?
yeah, Connie is Leighton Meester's mother, and Leighton
Right.
Meester was the star in the TV series Gossip Girl,
Yeah.
and she's been on the front cover of pretty much every magazine out there,
Yeah.
from Teen Magazine to this I don't read magazines, but she's very, very, very famous.
Yeah, isn't the story that, that Leighton was born in prison?
Yeah, well, Connie was in prison, and she wasn't born in the prison. They took her from prison to the hospital, where she was
Right.
born in the hospital, and then Connie went back to prison.
Right.
So
Right.
so yeah, Leighton Meester was sort of born in prison. You can Google that, and
Right.
she talks
Sure.
about that.
Yeah, yeah. Right. All right, so, you're in prison, you have your routine, your friends are all set up, and, you're deciding on your activities, and what makes you decide, "Okay, I'm gonna go get a college degree?"
Oh, that was just my nature. I couldn't wait to get a college degree. I always felt, you know, that I was undereducated. I was real
Mhm.
smart, and I was real, good entrepreneur and good at what I did in business, but I was not book smart. And I've
Yeah.
always wanted, and I never had the time to read books, like I said in the previous episode, because I was always too busy working all the time. Your life's on the line, freedom's on the line, and millions of dollars on the line. Who has time to read a book? You don't. Now
Sure.
I get. In fact, there was an article from a clean, well lighted place. It was the name of a bookstore, and I wrote them a letter. They said, "Your book came back. We need a new address." So I sent them a new address and said, "I'm in prison and I'll be here for the next 10 years. Now I finally have time to read all the books I bought at your store."
Right.
And
That's hilarious.
there was a famous columnist in San Francisco, I forget his name, that actually wrote that article in the San Francisco Times. Uh,
Right.
and I did. I had You know, I spent I did a time management study for one of my classes, and for 18 months, that went beyond the class, I wrote down everything I did in 15-minute segments. How
Hmm.
long I slept, when I worked out, when I ate, when I spent time with Lana, you know, and it was 8.5 hours a day in doing some kind of self-improvement, learn, grow, or study, whether it was working out, whether it was reading books, whether it was going to college classes, um, or anything that had to do with self-improvement and self and personal growth,
Right.
8.5 hours a day for 18 months.
That's a lot. It was like your job, 8 hours a day, right? You're just kinda growing and building and, learning and, doing all that. Yeah, no wonder you were, uh, you liked it, right? You had this whole, rebirth almost, if you will, right?
Yeah, and by the way, I still have that chart for 18 months, which we can show when I dig it out of my files, and I still have a list of every single book I wrote. I mean, I read during that time, so, uh, we'll feature that somewhere, my handwritten notes of all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have some of that stuff that I've been reviewing, lately and looking for some cool stuff. Um, alright, so and is there a library at the jail, or are you just getting books from the bookstore?
No, that was what was so cool about this place. They had the bookmobile would come in every 2 weeks. Maybe it was every week.
Oh, so like a portable library would
A
just drive
portable
in.
library, and you could order any book you wanted. So,
Ah,
any book you wanted. So, I read a lot of heavy Russian. Yeah, I read Dostoevsky, I read Tolstoy, Pushkin, all the great Russian writers, which are amazing. Mark Twain was probably the closest to those guys in terms of the quality of what he wrote. All Stephen King's books, um the Clan of the Cave Bear, that was a amazing one incredible series, a real thick book. We all read that. Joe read it, then he'd give me, volume 1, and then he'd get volume 2. It was Clan of the Cave Bear, I forget the name, but Tolstoy, uh, not I mentioned Tolstoy, Tolkien, all the Hobbit books,
neat.
read those, and, Westerners, science fiction, it didn't matter, I just read an
Right,
entire
right,
variety.
right. And how did you feel yourself grow during all of that? What how did did it did you feel like you were smarter? Did you feel like you were becoming book smart? What's happening that drives you to that, or is it just something to do to pass the time?
No, that's an interesting question because I was still a criminal. I'm gonna
Yeah,
get out of prison, go back to smuggling,
yeah.
and, and I'm talking to people. David Rose was in there. We said, "What can we do when we get out?" Stephen Kalish. In fact, we did work together in phone cards, not in smuggling, um, and, um and I'll tell you, the smuggling thing ended, but I remember when I changed my self perspective on who I was and what I was. It was between the 3rd and 4th year of college. Now, keep in mind,
Mhm.
I did what I would call beyond A plus work. If I'm gonna spend all this time, they say do a 20-page journal. I did a 400-page journal, and I
Right,
really
right.
dove into everything I was studying. In the beginning
A
of
bit
this
of an overachiever, it sounds like.
yeah, like at the beginning of
Yeah.
a course, whatever it was, I'd read the entire textbook first, and then I'd go back and catch up to where we were, maybe chapter 2, all right? 'Cause that's all it would take, 1 or 2 chapters before as the class progressed before I got done, and then I come back and start, so in between that 3rd and 4th year, I said, "I'm not a criminal anymore. I'm an intelligentista," you
Mm.
know, an intellectual. So that was a
I
change.
find that really interesting because when everyone else goes to college, right? That's the point, right? Between your 3rd and 4th year where you kinda get your shit together and say, "Okay, this is what I'm gonna focus on. This is what I'm gonna do in my life." So it's interesting how it paralleled exactly what you were doing, in your 30s while you were in prison.
Yeah, I didn't know that is that a pattern and when you went to
Yeah,
college?
yeah, yeah.
So it really kicks in what you like and what you don't like between the 3rd and 4th year.
That's right, because, you're getting to the end, you have to, really maintain good grades in whatever your major has become or changed into at that point, right? And you're coming to the home stretch, right? And it's, the pressure is on to get out into the world
Or get a master's degree and a PhD
or get a
if
master's degree. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You could always do that, right? Good students really like staying in school, you know?
Well,
Right.
after I got my 4-year college degree, I kept going. I was doing correspondence courses at the same time with
Yeah.
Donsbach College of Nutrition. So I got an AA, a
I did some of
BA.
that because I was kicked out of college, so I had to do correspondence classes just to get back into college,
Why were
right?
you kicked out of college?
I never really went to class, and,
Were you smoking
I
pot?
I was smoking a lot of pot. I was selling a lot of pot, and, I was making a lot of money, and, I was just kinda bored with college, It just was like, "Yeah, whatever." Remember, I had traveled around the country prior to going to college, and, I learned more in those 3.5 months of traveling around the country than I did in college. So, I was just bored. And I wanted to get out into the world and go do something and start earning, right? But so I was already doing that in college, but then you take a look at yourself and you're like, oh shit, what am I doing? I was a DJ at the radio station and I was selling weed. And I got kicked out of school living in Gainesville, right? And I'm like, wow, I don't want to be here 40 years from now, right, doing this. Uh, so I ended up moving to California,
You
where all
know,
the
it's
weed is.
yeah, it's interesting you said that because I went to day junior college after high school. I went to like, I don't know, I kept dropping out because I couldn't afford it. I had to go back and start
Yeah,
selling pot to keep a
right.
living. So I maybe got 10 credits. And then I hitchhiked around the country just like you did. I went traveling all over the country in 1970. And I remember the same exact thing that I say that you just said. I learned more that summer than I did in 13 years of college
Yeah,
formal education, high school,
yeah.
12 years and 1 year in college. I mean, I'm talking everything, geography, where the states are, where the
Everything.
capital of every
Yeah,
state is,
yeah, everything.
you know,
Yeah, it was great. It was a great education. It was a great experience. I came out and saw you guys up in Ukiah in 1981, right? When you were neck deep into all of this stuff, right?
yeah.
Um, so it was a lot of fun. So
That's when
listen,
we
we
wouldn't
are.
that's
What's
when we
that?
would not let you work on the dock.
That's right. That's right. I was not invited to work on the dock, but I did work construction at the Ukiah house, and we were the gophers who did all the shit work. But we were happy to do it. It was, I was 18. I was, living the dream in Northern California in this beautiful mansion, right? And then we would drive down to Berkeley and usually pick up either lobster or crab from like the side of the road and then come down to Berkeley and then Becky would cook it up and we would feast. So that was a good fun time for me. Certainly my first real taste of, wealth and my first really experience with seeing, wealth, which was yours.
Extravagant wealth, we should say.
Yeah, I mean, the Ukiah house was just off the hook. Your Berkeley house was off the hook, and just that alone, just the toys and the gadgets and the technologies that you had at the time, 1981, was just so impressive. It really shaped, I believe, it shaped my direction in that, wow, I can have some of that, right? If I just go out and do whatever, doesn't have to be smuggling, right? Because that still wasn't even talked about really. It was just sort of implied, right, when I was there, because the dudes didn't want to talk about it, the construction guys. And our families were like, "Is this what Bruce is doing? Is that what Bruce is doing?" Like our family was like, we didn't really talk about it. We kinda knew, right? But we didn't really it wasn't a, "Bruce is a big smuggler." Like, I never
Mhm.
had a conversation with your mom about that, right? That was it was all top secret, and even, our parents worked together every day, at the jewelry store and, didn't really talk about it.
Yeah, Craig was laundering his money through the jewelry store.
I know. I know, we talked about that, and my dad had no idea. And if he did have an idea, I didn't he didn't tell us, that's for sure.
No, he didn't. He didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, we are running a little long, so we're gonna cut this short, and we're gonna come back next week and start talking about, you're integrated back into the Pleasanton life. You're going to class every day, and then kind of what a day-to-day routine is, and what's going on. We'll come back and talk about that next week. Sound good?
Yeah, and there's some really funny, uh, I'm sure there were some sad moments, but I just remember all the funny, hysterical things that happened in prison, and I like to tell some of those stories because the audience will really enjoy that because it's totally unique and one that once in a history of America kind of stories.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Here you are, one of the largest marijuana smugglers of all time, and you're in a co-ed prison hanging out with other bank robbers and terrorists and assassins and cat burglars and all of these other folks, both men and women. And we're going to learn more about that next week. So I'm Todd Dankin. He is Bruce Perlowin, the King of Pot, and you've been watching Becoming the King of Pot. Thanks for watching, and please make sure you subscribe and you hit that like button so we can achieve our goals here at Becoming the King of Pot. Bruce, we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Todd. Looking forward to it.